some breaking news to bring you. The police watchdog has released additional information after a complaint was upheld that senior Rotherham police officers failed in statutory responsibilities to protect children during the grooming scandal.
The complaint was upheld in 2022, but no reference to senior officers has been made by the Independent Office for Police Conduct during their probe until today. Our national reporter, Charlie Peters, obviously has the full story for you. Charlie.
Well, Dawn, this review took place from 1999 to 2011. Those are the years that they were investigating. The complaint was launched in 2017 after a former strategic drugs analyst in South Yorkshire Police, Angie Heal, and the key Rotherham whistleblower, Jane Senior, who was a youth worker, made a complaint to the IOPC, the police watchdog. Now, that took 5 years, and it published internally in 2022, and it found that senior officers had failed. But that information was never released to the public. It was part of the overarching Operation Linden review into policing failures, which looked at junior officers and found dozens of cases where people had a case to answer for, and found a handful of cases of gross misconduct, of which 5 only suffered any penalties. 1 was given a written warning, the most severe penalty that was provided. Now, senior officers being implicated for the first time in the failures to protect children, and that being now public information, is a very significant moment, because that includes the rank of Chief Superintendent and above, a very senior rank indeed. Now, Jane and Angie have fought tooth and nail to get this information into the public domain for well over a decade. In particular, it's been very difficult since 2022 when Linden came out, because the IOPC, they'd put out loads of information, but this critical reference to senior wasn't there. What we can reveal today is that the South Yorkshire Combined Authority Mayor, Oliver Coppard, has played a central role in helping to bring this information forward. Sources familiar with meetings held between Mr Coppard and others trying to engage with the IOPC on this issue say that in some meetings he said, basically, I'm your boss's boss. Get this information out there or you'll hear from me again. So serious political pressure applied to the IOPC, as I understand it, to get this information into public domain. What does this new summary say? It's only 5 pages long. I understand that Operation Amazon is far longer in its full reports. It says that basically intelligence processing and sharing was insufficient, that there were critical failures in processing key information about number plates, about perpetrators' names, and that 18 people who went on to be successfully prosecuted between 2016 and 2017. And there were key opportunities missed to investigate them seriously by South Yorkshire Police about a decade before that. It grimly concluded that the people that they failed to investigate went on to abuse young girls until they were convicted 14 years later. Well over a decade of missed opportunities. At some stakeholder CSE meetings involving the police, it was found that a lot of focus was given to drugs issues, but the CSE was overlooked and sidelined, and that there appeared to have been no vehicle checks on individuals, no cross-border intelligence, and no requests to staff to target them. So, are there any names in this report? No, there are no names at all, because the IOPC has said that this was a systemic organisational failure as opposed to the failings of individuals. Now, what does that mean in terms of what they can do next? Well, it definitely limits what can happen in terms of further investigation, because they could not, they say, identify a named individual who had responsibility, and so it's not a misconduct issue. They say that even though they have found these critical failures, they didn't find any instance where they may have committed a criminal offence or behaved in a manner which would justify the bringing of disciplinary proceedings. So it's a collective failure, no names, no further action, but still plenty of anger from the victims and survivors in Rotherham and their families.
Deservedly so. Those families and those girls need justice, and this is just not on. And even if we could name names, and they could be named, they'd get a written warning.
Chief Superintendent and above, there aren't very many of those.
Exactly.
Have you had a random call lately from a strange number, maybe trying to sell you something or even scam you? If so, your info could be out there. That's because of data brokers, shady companies that scrape the internet for your personal details and sell them to marketers or even scammers. These days, scammers can even use AI to mimic your friends' voices and trick you into sending money. It's not just annoying. Data brokers often target vulnerable people with high-interest loans or sketchy offers. But there is a solution. Incogni, the sponsor of this video. Incogni contacts data brokers on your behalf and requests your info be deleted from their databases. And because your data can keep popping up, Incogni keeps sending removal requests to make sure it stays gone. They've just launched a new unlimited plan with custom removals. If you find your info on a weird website, just send them the link and their privacy team will work to get it taken down. Getting started is easy. Hit the link in the description, create your account and let Incogni handle the rest. It's risk-free for 30 days and you'll get 60% off an annual plan with the code GBNews. Take back control of your data with Incogni.
Now, MI6 is going dark, launching a new secure portal on the dark web to help recruit spies even in hostile countries like Russia and North Korea.
The platform, called Silent Courier, will let potential agents share sensitive information on terrorism or foreign threats directly with the UK.
OK, let's get the thoughts of security expert at the University of Buckingham, Professor Anthony Glees, on this. Professor, I'm surprised, actually, that this sort of wasn't already going on. You sort of would have expected MI6 to have fingers in every single pie possible.
Yeah, and I'm surprised it's in all the national newspapers today. The spies.
Yeah. Well, I think it is important always to remember when we're dealing with the spooky world that people say things for all sorts of reasons, and the reasons they give are not always the correct ones. Because on the face of it, there are two problems about Silent Courier, this platform on the dark web allegedly being used to recruit agents by MI6. The first is that the recruitment of agents by MI6 officers has always been done face to face. And that's really, really important because the penalty an agent pays in many parts of the country is death. You've got to be able to trust implicitly that the person you're giving information to is going to guard that information 100%. You can't do that on the dark web, as we know. I know the dark web is dark, but everybody leaves a trace somewhere. So in trying to contact MI6 via the dark web, it's perfectly possible that a hostile intelligence service would use the dark web to discover who that agent was. So it is actually, oddly, far riskier, in my view, than a personal encounter with somebody who turns out to be in MI6. So it's against tradition. And the other thing that I think is very odd is that if you want to recruit somebody to work for this country, and we clearly need people, particularly in Russia, to recruit the people who can tell us what's actually going on inside the Kremlin, the idea of using the dark web is very curious. My opinion is that there's probably as much to deter people from using the dark web as encouraging them.
It's some kind of really, really clever, way above my head, double bluff going on here. The fact that the story's out there in the first place, because if you were going to, mess up MI6 or, infiltrate it, the story's out there. It's a fairly obvious way to do it now, isn't it? Or am I missing something?
I think you're right. The fact that this is Istanbul of all places, as I say, this spooky world, things often are not what they appear. And the outgoing head of MI6 is saying rather sweetly, I think, he's hanging up his secret cloak, he's getting rid of his non-existent dagger, and he's passing on his green pen to a new sea. And this, in Istanbul, could actually be a kind of veiled suggestion that things hadn't gone quite as well as they should.
Right.
We live in the internet age, everybody knows that. But there's some values that never change, and the value of person-to-person trust may be one of them.
It is extraordinary that we're even having this conversation on national television. It's only a few decades ago that the government wouldn't even acknowledge the secret intelligence services existed. I mean, that's a relatively recent phenomenon.
Absolutely.
And so why is it now that these services that only 3 decades ago officially did not exist are now producing glossy recruitment videos?
Well, cynics might think that our foreign intelligence services, MI5 is, I think, doing a very good job at the moment, but our secret intelligence service isn't really hacking it at the moment. We don't know exactly what's going on in the Kremlin. We ought to know. We don't know exactly what's going on in China. We ought to know. Those people we think are caught as Chinese spies. They're not brought to trial. So this could be an attempt to, make MI6 look good and effective again in this very difficult world. But as I say, the essence of MI6 has always been a face-to-face relationship of trust with people. You know who they are, and you're giving them your life to look after. You don't want to put this in indelible electronic ink anywhere on the internet, and certainly not on the dark web. So curious, a lot of smoke and mirrors going on there, in my view.
Well, really, really interesting to get your view. Professor Anthony Cleese of the University of Buckingham, thanks indeed for joining us.
Thank you. Now, you've got a spy story, haven't you? Because you weren't recruited on the dark web, even though he has been on the dark web. He knows these things.
I just had a funny experience at university where I think it was strange. Someone gave me a card and a number, and I don't know if someone tried to recruit me when I was an undergraduate, but looking back, it feels like one of those things that might have been going down that path.
So were they mysterious? Did they just sort of sidle up and leave a card or tap you on the shoulder, or how did it happen? Tell me more.
It was I think early evening, and I was outside some sort of university event, and I just got talking to this person who seemed. I wish I could remember it with the clarity that this story deserves, but it is fuzzy and hazy and about a decade ago. But yes, I mean it was one of those things that I just walked away thinking, hang on, was that just some sort of recruitment effort?
Would you have taken it up?
No.
If you could remember anything about it, obviously, you being a student
of
and not
course, I didn't take it up, and I wouldn't have told you if I did.
Or do we know for sure? I mean,
Well,
is Tom Harwood actually a spy?
Wouldn't the best way to hide be in plain sight on national television?
Sitting here with me, yeah. Absolutely, it really would. Yeah, I trust you emphatically, of course.
Of course, it was Ed Davey, leader of the Lib Dems, who got much further in the recruitment process of becoming a spy.
Yes.
This was revealed only a month or two ago.
Yes.
He got, I think, through to the interview stage before deciding it wasn't for him.
I'm not entirely sure that says about the calibre of men they are choosing to want to be spies, Tom. So maybe you being touched on the shoulder all those years ago, maybe it's not as good as it sounds, to be honest with you. You and
there's
Davey.
a lot of rumour about certain politicians, whether or not they were spies in the past.
Yeah.
Naming no names.
No. But they do recruit at university, so it could have been Tom. He could have been James Bond.
I'd have been terrible.
Yeah,
I'd have been really bad.
Yeah, that is true.
Well, it's time for the Great British Giveaway now. Your chance to win over £104,000 worth of motorhome and indeed tax-free cash to boot. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details.
So, yeah, I mean, it could have been all sorts of nefarious things going on there.
Really could.
Really could.
Well, let's